that has stuck with me for so long, and I've never had another experience like that. That was a really, like, one-of-a-kind experience. And I just took that real, like, she just wants to see me dance. She wants to see me live. It's similar to, like, what you were saying. They want us to live. They don't want us to be sad. We have to keep living for them, for their honor. It's, like, the best thing that we can do.
Welcome to Lost and Found, and on today's episode, we have actress Monica Garcia. We talk about how she lost her mother 8 years ago to cancer. We talk about how her grief has evolved over time, where I am in my grief. We talk about triggers that we didn't realize that other people had. Monica had so many insightful things to say about grief, especially how the grief changes over time, and that it's not going to be as bad as it is forever. This is such a powerful episode, and I really, really hope this helps you. It definitely helped me during the episode. I realized a lot of the things I was going through are normal and that they aren't going to be like this forever, and it really helped me and gave me some motivation to move forward. So thank you for watching, and I hope it does the same for you.
Thank you so much for being here, Monica. I really appreciate it.
I'm really happy to be here.
You lost your mother in 2016.
Mm-hmm. So my mother passed away in 2016 of cancer. She had been battling cancer for a year prior to that, but she was also in remission for like 6 to 8 months after she had been through cancer. So she went through chemo, she went through radiation. It caught us off guard because when she was first diagnosed with cancer, it started off as what they call 1A, which is essentially like baby cancer.
Okay.
It means super not a big deal. You're going to go through a little bit of chemo, a little bit of radiation, you're going to be fine. So we were not worried when this diagnosis came through. We weren't worried, but the doctors made it seem very fine. And she went through remission and everything seemed to be going well. But that whole time she was in remission, she was still so sick. She was constantly going back into the hospital in the emergency room. I remember the Christmas Eve, right before she passed, we were in the emergency room, Christmas Eve. And the doctors just kept telling her, oh, you know, it's just an infection, it's UTI or whatever. She had also had to have a hysterectomy, so they kind of kept blaming it on that. She went into the hospital a month prior to her going into hospice, not feeling well. So it was so shocking for us because this woman was in remission, like she was supposed to be fine, and all of a sudden she's not, and now it turned into 4. It was like the critical mass cancer, and that was it. And then she was gone. And so that really surprised us because we weren't expecting that. We really thought that we were on the journey of, this is over. We've gotten through this. And so that's why when people ask me if it was a surprise or not, it's sort of a yes and sort of a no. And yeah, it was definitely a really complicated situation. There was some malpractice involved. But the time that she found a new doctor, it just was too late. The hospital encouraged her to find a new oncologist because they were so confused as to why she wasn't getting the proper aftercare that she should have been getting post chemo and radiation and everything. It just was too late by that point. One of the things I wanted to talk about was making sure that if you have a loved one who is going through something, they're battling cancer or an injury or any sort of other illness, don't take it lightly, even if the doctors do. Be on top of it. Doctors are humans. They make mistakes. They don't know everything. Unfortunately, this was a case of exactly that. This doctor really did not think it was going to be a big deal, and then it changed everyone's lives and everyone around her by losing her.
That is insane. I feel like you always need to get a second opinion or trust if she was still sick.
Mm-hmm.
I am so sorry that happened.
Thank you. Yeah, it was wild. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. You know, I always say get a second opinion. I think that older generation was very much under the belief that, like, my doctor knows everything and I trust my doctor. And that's a beautiful sentiment. I think that's a really nice thought, but we have to be realistic on doctors have protocols. They have quotas. The doctors are not exactly running things the way they used to be. They're not necessarily in the business to help people anymore.
It's a business.
It's a business. They're making money, and unfortunately, they made a lot of money off my mother going through chemo and radiation and all the medications. And we had quite a few people that came to us asking us if we wanted to pursue legal action, but we were just too heartbroken,
Of course.
to go through any of that. There was no amount of money that we could put on it that was going to make anything better at the time. The amount of evidence we were going to have to dig up and show and find and all of that just was so complicated, and none of us, my family, we couldn't really get ourselves to do it. So unfortunately, we let it go.
I feel like it would have caused more hurt, especially right after than a person can or should handle after a loss like that.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that. I don't think I'd be able to either. When my mom passed, a lot of her friends were saying I should look into the hospitals because some stuff was wonky. I know there was a few times she went to the hospital, she totaled her car.
Oh my gosh.
She left still high on the medications they gave her. They let her leave and she totaled her car.
It's fucked. We're living in one of the greatest countries in the world, so to speak, but our care, our medical care is so subpar. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people are suffering because of it.
Yes, it really is.
And also just the misinformation around things that do help. I remember I had a friend out in California that mailed me a box of some good CBD and weed and all these other things. And she was like, no, this is going to help. This is going to help. And my mother didn't want to touch any of it because she had such a stigma against it. If she were alive today, now we have weed and apples looking stores. They're so like nice. She wasn't around to see that where it's turned into. Just the stigma around the care that would have been helpful. She couldn't get herself to do it. She wanted to trust the doctors instead. And unfortunately, it got us in this place.
You said she did end up going to hospice before. How long was she in hospice?
She was in hospice for a week. She was in hospice for a week.
And y'all found out shortly before that it was stage 4.
She was in the hospital for almost 2 months, that full 2 months prior to her going into hospice for that week. So we knew it was bad. Like they told us, this is stage 4. It is everywhere. I mean, this cancer is everywhere. Like there is no surgery. All they were doing was just trying to make her comfortable. Fluids would get built up and she would have a hard time breathing and she would have a hard time talking. And so they would drain the fluids and she'd be okay for a couple of days. And then it would just get right back to where it was because it just was everywhere. And her body was just retaining all this fluid and tension.
That is hard.
It was hard. It was hard.
Were you able to come to terms with what was going to happen as it was happening?
Great question. And the answer is a big fat no. I was so delusional and positive and truly did not believe that God would ever take my mother away from me. I was like, that happens to other people. It's not going to happen to us. I believed, I had so much faith that this woman was going to make it, even when she was on death's door now. Also to add on, I actually was not present the day she passed away, which is also a big heartbreaking part of it. I had come into town. I was in town for a few weeks. I was living in New York at the time. And I'd come into town for a few weeks because I knew she was in the hospital. I wanted to be with her. She was doing pretty bad, but again, I'm happy, faithful Monica, positive. I'm telling her, you're going to get through this. Like, it's going to be great. You're a warrior. You're a survivor. You're going to get through this. I was supposed to do a show in New York for that week, the following week. I was going to drop out of the show just to be with her. And my mom would not let me drop out of the show. She was like, no, do not do that. Go do your show. And I was like, Mom, it's fine. Like, it's not a big deal. I will just stay here. And she refused to let me do that. And I said, okay, how about this? I will go back to New York. I will do the show for the week. I'm going to come right back after we close. So rehearsal was on a Monday. We put the show up on a Saturday. I'll be back on Sunday. She passed away that Friday. It was wild. I was so conflicted the whole time on what I should do. We hadn't really been able to talk on the phone much prior to this because it was just hard for her to communicate and have the energy to talk on the phone. But she called me and it was like nothing had ever changed. She sounded completely normal. And she was happy. She felt really, really great. And I'm just walking around New York City talking to my mom. We did that every day. I would just walk around New York City and talk to my mom on the phone constantly, every day, all day. And it felt like everything was going to be fine. And I was like, see, everything's going to be great. And she was gone 2 days later.
Did you say you felt some regret with that, not being there?
I have never let go of the regret of not being there. Never. I don't know what it would have changed. I mean, she wouldn't even have known I was there, to be honest. And I remember my dad telling me that week. I remember when I got off the phone with her, she felt so great. The next day she went down again. And I called my dad and I was like, Dad, what do I do? Do I need to fly out tonight? He's like, she wouldn't even know you were here. Don't worry about it. They had her on so many drugs at that point. He's like, she wouldn't want you to drop out of your show. Just stay there and do it. And I did. It's tough. It's such a toss. Obviously, my presence there wouldn't have necessarily helped anything. But I really did not think the last time I saw my mother was going to be the last time I saw my mother. I really did not. And actually, when my dad was taking me back to the airport that week, he said that. He was walking me out and he was like, you know, that might be the last time you ever see her. And I got so mad at him. I was like, how dare you give up on her like that? I was like, keep your negativity to yourself. She's not going anywhere. She needs us. She needs us to help her fight. I don't know if I was just young and naive or what. It's taken me a long, long time to regain faith in the universe after that.
Yeah, I definitely relate with that. Before my mom died, I just knew everything was going to be exactly what I wanted. She was going to be there. I always imagined having this huge house and her having a guest house in the back and taking care of my kids, her being sober, everything. I knew that was going to happen. And then when she died, I was like, I don't think any of it's going to happen.
Yeah. Going on with life with those notions in your head, because you do think about those things and you do think your parents are going to be there for those big life events and you picture them. It is so hard to comprehend a life after that person is gone. Now I'm on the other side of it where a lot of life has happened. I've had a lot of beautiful things happen in my life since that passing. I do actually think that she has a part of it. I think she has a hand in my fate at this point. I think she's actually, dare I say, even a better mother now since she's gone than she even was when she was here. She was an amazing mother. So many wonderful things in my life just have her little thumbprint on it, from exciting things in my career to the man that I married. To be perfectly honest, my husband is her dream man. And tall, dark, and handsome, and he needed to dance, and that's my husband. So I always thought that was so funny that I find him after the passing, and it does make all those life events a little bittersweet. It does. It's hard because I knew she was just my biggest cheerleader, and now my biggest cheerleader is not here anymore. Now my biggest cheerleader is definitely my husband. He is my biggest fan. It's tough. It is really tough to continue to live life with that pain and without that person. I would say the biggest thing is to accept it. I think if you're feeling guilt, write it out. What about that guilt that you're feeling? Trying to process those feelings, understanding that you didn't have a part in it. This was just how it was meant to be. Sometimes I can go down the blame game of things. My siblings and I have pretty much figured out that one of the biggest things that causes cancer is stress. My mother was very stressed for years prior to that. Financial stress. My father had a lot of issues. She was very stressed with his issues. I think it just got to her. I think it wore her body down to a point that she got this terrible cancer. And it's hard to hang on to the guilt of that. Like, what kind of part did I play in that stress? How could I have made life easier for her? At the end of the day, I know I was one of the best parts about her life. Me and my brother and my sister. And she said that every day.
I feel like our souls just know things that our brain doesn't always comprehend.
Yeah.
Because I play the blame game all the time, and I'm an only child. So I blame myself sometimes. I blame her. I blame her friends. My brain wants some closure to it. And if it has something to make it the reason it happened, I feel like my brain's like, then you'll feel better.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I think it will. My sister and I have talked about this actually just recently. When things are meant to happen, we don't realize it in the moment. It feels like, why does this need to happen? And for years, it was like, why did this need to happen? What good did the world, how did this progress the world in any way, shape, or form by taking this incredible woman away from us? She was so philanthropic. She was an educator. She taught high school. She also came from the corporate world, so she was a freaking genius. She was so smart and well-rounded. She grew up in a life of poverty and came out of it. She was the first person in her family to graduate from college. She also grew up in a very racist time as well. Everyone told her, you're Hispanic, you're never going to be anything. You'll be fat and making tortillas in the kitchen. She had a teacher in high school tell her that, actually. She never forgot that. She was like, oh, watch me. And she did it. She got to college, got a degree, got a great job, and made something of herself. She was sort of the successful one of her family. It was always such an honor to be her daughter. And she helped so many people. She taught at a sort of an underprivileged high school. A lot of poverty in the area, a lot of foster kids, really, really tough school to go to. Everyone actually thought she was crazy when she first started working there, because it can almost be like a dangerous school at times. She loved it. She loved going to this school. She woke up every day so excited to go teach these kids. And she changed countless lives. Countless lives. It just made no sense why someone needed to take her away. Being on the other side of it now, it's funny how different events in my life, there's a lot of events that I wish she was there for. There's a lot of events I'm glad she wasn't there for. I'm glad my mother didn't have to live through COVID. She was a germaphobe. She would have been miserable. That alone probably would have gotten her sick. She would have been so stressed from it. I really wish she was at my wedding. That's always been a tough one. But there are also things that, my mother and I kind of had a codependent relationship. I did everything with my mother's approval, and now I didn't have that. And now I had to make choices for myself. And making choices for myself for the first time in my life led me to so many other things that I'm not sure if I would have made those choices if she was here. I don't think I would have ever moved to Atlanta.
Really?
Nope. I wouldn't have. She wouldn't have let me. She would have been like, why are you moving to Atlanta? Giving up, you're moving for a guy, what are you doing? You need to stay in New York. I would hear that little voice in my head. I did it anyway, because I was like, well, I'm going to try it. I'm not moving for a man. I'm moving to try something different. Just happened to be moving with a man. And that ended up being the greatest thing I'd ever done in my entire life. So here are these big leaps that I took that I don't know if she necessarily would have approved of. And it led me to having this really beautiful and fruitful life. But then there are the tough ones. She's not there to help with my nephews. My nephews have always had a little bitterness. They grew up hardened with that experience. It's really tough to watch them grow up like that.
Were they alive when she passed?
Mm-hmm. Especially my oldest nephew, who's turning 16 in December. He remembers her the most. She was around the most when he was young. The youngest one kind of remembers her. He remembers pieces of her. He was relatively young still when she passed. But even so, he sees the grief around him. He sees what this passing has done to his family and how much it's destroyed everyone's spirits. The dynamic of our family completely changed after that. And there's just no real going back. I only say that to say there will be moments in your life where you'll be happy they're not there to see it.
I haven't felt this in a while, but my mom sometimes was really hard to deal with. And I went through spurts where I was questioning if I was glad she died. Then I immediately felt like shit for thinking that. Then I was like, you're a shit person for thinking that. You love her. She loved you. I did battle with that for a while. I know she's still around. I do. She's just everywhere, though. It's not necessarily feeling great all the time. I feel like I'm at this stage where all the things I thought I wanted, I don't know if I want them.
When my mother passed, I was full-fledged actor in New York City. I felt the exact same way. I was like, I can't go to an audition right now. I don't want to go to an audition right now. That is the very last thing I want to do. I want to be somebody not me right now. So I took a little break from the industry, from everything. I did things that I knew she would like to do. I traveled, I explored. I got to have really cool life experiences. I got to kind of find myself again a little bit. So I think that that's totally normal that you might be feeling that. And I think that also those feelings you're talking about of feeling like maybe it's a good thing she's gone, those little feelings are going to keep kind of creeping in all the time. I still get those too. I think it's a coping mechanism from our brain. I think it's our brain knowing that the grief is coming in. And so, well, if not sadness, then how about anger? Maybe if we're just angry at the person.
Yeah,
maybe
just like some sort of protection.
Yeah, it's a protection. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, maybe it's a good thing she's not here anymore. I'm better off that she's not here anymore. And I'm not.
And that's not true.
It's not true. But I have to tell myself that to get through it.
Yeah.
I think our brain just protects us in those moments of hurt and anger. The more you are with the grief, the more you can identify it and know that that feeling is not real. It's just creeping in as a protection. So I label it now when it happens. I'm like, okay, that's not real. And then I start thinking about all the wonderful things that I loved about her.
I definitely do feel like our brains lie to us all the time.
All the time.
Did you feel like you forgot who you were when she died?
I don't think I necessarily experienced that feeling, like forgetting who I was. If anything, I was trying to search for who I was via the coping mechanisms. I'm going to be honest, my family did not handle the coping the way I did. My family sort of went towards substances to ease their pain. I knew that was not something that my mom wanted me to do, or any of us to do. Something that I did, I was living in Washington Heights at the time. There was a Planet Fitness like a few blocks up from me, and it's open 24 hours a day. Every time I wanted to go buy a bottle of wine, I would go to the gym instead. I would go to the gym 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was not a gym person. I was going there for a coping thing. I chose healthier ways to deal with it in honor of her. I think that was a really important thing for me, and that was the best thing I could have ever done with that grieving time. I also tried to make life not about myself. That was a really big help because I wasn't auditioning. I didn't really book work that year. So what did I do? Instead of wallowing about not working that summer, I traveled all over the country seeing all my friends' shows. I was like, this isn't about me. I'm going to go see other people. I'm going to go celebrate other people. It really helped with the grieving process and finding some light at the end of the tunnel. Once you've lost somebody that means that much to you, the closest thing I can compare it to is losing a limb. If you lose that limb, your whole life is going to change because you lost that limb. But your life is also not over. Life is also going to look different. You're going to move through life differently now. You're going to walk differently. You're going to talk differently. You're going to react differently. You're going to experience joy differently. You're going to experience grief differently. Everything about me kind of changed from that day. I don't necessarily feel like I lost myself. I weirdly feel like it was the transition that was needed for me to become the woman I was supposed to become. Like a part of me was always supposed to experience that grief. Our traumas happen to us, and hopefully they can reshape us for the better. It's really a choice of if we're going to do that or not.
I heard Paul Rudd talking about the death of his father. He was like, you can either evolve or perish.
Yes.
It's one or the other.
Yes. I know that the passing of my mother helped me evolve into a better person, more compassionate person, more empathetic, stronger, kinder. Also forces me to enjoy the little moments more, which is really hard when you're grieving. Really hard to enjoy the little things in life. But again, it's a choice.
Oh, absolutely. Where I am right now with her death is the things that I did not get to express to her or show her. I thought I was in the moment. But in hindsight, I could have done more. And I'm not trying to stay in the I could have's, but use that as a lesson to know how I want to treat people. When people in my life are going through things, I'm trying to be more understanding and compassionate and show up instead of cut them off.
You become very sensitive to the negative. After that, it's very much like I can only handle so much negativity. My tolerance level for it has gone down for sure.
It kind of feels like a trauma response. I'm still having a hard time being able to handle small stressors, but if someone dies, I know exactly how to handle it.
Yeah.
It doesn't stress me out. I don't grieve it the same how I grieved my mother. God, it's fucking hard.
It's so hard. It's an everyday struggle. She passed away in 2016. Last night, I'm surfing through my Facebook, refreshing myself on the timeline of everything for today. And I'm sobbing on the couch like it just happened. That wound feels so fresh all of a sudden. Those moments are tough. Then I usually just kind of reframe it that this is me missing her and this is me grieving her in this moment is celebrating her legacy.
And your love for her.
And my love for her, my respect for her.
I said to one of my friends the other day, with unconditional love comes unconditional grief. I feel like it is a testimony of our love for that person. And I don't want to stop grieving her. I just want it to fuel me instead of destroy me.
Yeah. And there's a lot of sneaky ways grief will try to destroy you. I noticed it in my own relationship. I remember there was a point I realized just how in love with my husband I am, where we were going. All of a sudden, I would get really angry because with great love comes great loss. And I just was like, I don't know if I can open up my heart like that again, if I can truly love somebody again like that, because I don't know if I can deal with the possibility of ever losing them.
Yeah.
And so to take that risk again and to let myself love an incredible human like my husband was one of the hardest things that I could have let myself do.
I have found myself purposely trying to self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage. Yes.
My relationship with my boyfriend. I'm so aware, but like, it does not matter. I don't want to be touched. We're roommates right now.
It's tough. It's hard. A lot has changed for him as well through you going through this. It's important that everyone kind of understand what's happening so that we can have some grace with that. This will take some time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be an easy fix. There might be parts of the relationship that might never go back to normal because of it. Again, grief changes you forever. You have to figure out which parts are the good changes and which are the changes that are not serving myself or anyone around me. You having a great partner and then shoving them away, that doesn't serve anybody either.
No, he's grieving his dog right now. When he's grieving, my mind is like, I've been grieving for a year and a half. I don't want to anymore.
Yeah, that's a funny feeling. I have had friends who've had parents pass away. You would think the first thing I would do would reach out. I run. I don't say anything. I pretend I didn't see it. That's a weird trauma response, and that's not something that I thought I would react to like that. I thought the opposite. I would reach out to that person, but it is just such a hard thing to handle that then when you see somebody else going through it that you care about, it feels like it happens to you again.
And you
take it personal. That is an odd reaction. Reacting to things in general has changed for me. I don't react to things, I think, in a normal way anymore.
What's normal?
What's normal? Which honestly has been interesting as a working actor as well, because there's the way I would react to things now, and then there's the way that normal humans react to things. 1% a day. You don't have to feel like a full-fledged human just yet. It's so fresh for you. I'm very much on the other side of my grief where it's been a long time. I've been through a lot on the other side of it, but I remember 2 months in, no, I give you props for even doing this. I don't know if I would have had the emotional capacity to put on a new project after like going through the grief.
I'm an only child. I was the only person grieving my mother on that level. I felt very alone. I feel like if there was an outlet like this or something during that time, I would have fucking watched it.
Absolutely.
I would have laid in my bed sobbing and not felt alone. I've always said my purpose is to help people heal and feel. We're all going to experience grief.
Yeah.
We're all going to experience it, and people don't talk about it. People get 3 days off work if their spouse dies. That's fucking wild to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Then it's like, okay, you're fine, right?
Yeah.
We need you.
That's not normal.
No, it's not.
I just want it to be an open conversation. I wasn't alone. Like, I had my boyfriend. I did have friends, but I didn't want to talk to them. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like they understood. I don't want people to feel like that if I can help it. I want to, like, help people.
And I think it will. I think it's going to reach people, and it's going to help not feeling alone. When you're going through the grief is so helpful. Just somebody there that understands. Hearing those words can be so helpful. And I had a few people that reached out to me when my mother passed who had also had a parent pass. They were just like, hey, I'm here if you need a vent. And it was so kind of them. I wish I could be that person. I don't know if I'm mentally and emotionally there yet. Maybe there is a future Monica that will happen. That support is so needed, and that understanding. I don't know about you, but I went through like the stages of grief the night she passed. I didn't know what was happening at the time because I had never heard of that. Essentially, I went from crying to laughing to numb, and then it would start all over. Cry, laugh, numb. Cry, laugh, numb. It was like an outer body experience. My roommate is the one that told me what was happening because he used to do counseling. I had no control over my emotions that night. And I was just reacting in all these bizarre ways. He validated those feelings for me very quickly. He was like, just so you know, this is really normal. You're going through the stages. And I was like, what are the stages? I thought I would just be sad. But they were these really, there were these crazy waves that would happen. Nobody prepares you for that.
No, whenever I got the phone call, I just dropped the phone. I looked at my boyfriend and said, my mom died. And I just started running throughout the house, screaming. People came to our front door to see if someone was being murdered.
Yeah.
Because, like, they had no idea what was going on, and that's how loud I was. I made noises I never thought I could make. Then I started jerking. I feel like I still go back and forth with all the stages. I've definitely accepted it, but like all the emotions just come whenever.
They come whenever. Oh, you have no control over it. I can be totally fine for a really long time. I'll smell something that reminds me of her, and then it'll just click and I'm a puddle on the ground. But one of the things, my husband and I, we could be annoying each other in the moment. But if I tell him and I express to him, like, this is a grieving moment, or it hits me all of a sudden, he will just immediately switch. He immediately is so compassionate and he just holds me. That happens anytime that she comes up in my head or I'm having a moment with her. He takes that moment with me. He stops what he's doing. He embraces that moment with me. We celebrate her in that moment. He lets me grieve it out for as little or as long as it takes. There is no rush.
My boyfriend does the same thing. My mom's birthday is on Monday, and there is a restaurant close by that my mom loved. She always went with her grandmother. Never have I gotten a fucking coupon for this restaurant. I came home yesterday, and there was like coupons for this restaurant. I was like, do you think it was her? He was like, yeah, and I just started sobbing, because I do too. Mm-hmm. But he holds that space for me too. I think that's why I feel so bad that I don't hold that space for him. My soul knows I need to.
Yeah.
But my brain is like, no, you need to protect.
Oh, the protecting will happen. I had a really unfortunate moment with my cat. We adopted this cat. She was a kitten. She had a bazillion health issues. So she was in and out of the hospital for a year until finally the vets called us and were like, hey, so you guys are going to have to start making a decision because this is a quality of life issue now for her. You're going to have to decide what you're going to do, but we suggest it's time. It's time. She needs to be put down. I shut down. Completely shut down. I didn't want to look at this cat. I didn't want to be in the same room as her. She would come to me to try to for comfort, and I would shove her away. It is the most shameful moment of my life, but Danny, my husband, he recognized that as a trauma response. Yeah. He picked up the slack and caring and being there for our cat, who, by the way, made a literal miraculous recovery. She is healthier than ever.
Good.
And she's amazing. We've had, I think, now 3 or 4 great years with her. I've had to essentially work on that relationship with my cat now, trying to gain her trust back because I wasn't there for her when she needed me, because I was going through my own emotional trauma at the time. I can't even believe that that's how I reacted. It immediately took me right back to something that I love so much is going to leave me. Yeah. And there's nothing I can do about it.
My 16-year-old dog died day before New Year's Eve. Then my mom died 4 months later. Then his dog, which I love so much, passed away in July. We were going to have to make a decision. I called a place to come to the house and put the dog down without even asking him. I think my brain was just like, it's going to happen. He's in pain. You're already hurting. The longer you put this off, the longer you're going to have to grieve him. I don't want to grieve anymore. My brain detached from his death entirely.
Detachment, yeah, that's a very common thing, for sure. I get that.
Yeah, like it doesn't associate that he was ever here sometimes. Mm. Then I see photos of him and I'm like, fuck, he loved me so much. And I feel bad for not being sad.
It's just grief on top of grief, and you're just protecting yourself. I think it would be a good idea for you to explore that and sit with that grief of the dog as well. And it will be really hard. It's going to feel terrible. But if we keep bottling it up and we keep protecting ourselves, we will never heal. We're talking about how the grief causes these protections, but that does not make it an excuse, or does not make it okay. These are trauma responses that we have to work through to become our best selves. and to come out on the other side continuing to be empathetic and compassionate people. Otherwise, this grief will harden you. I have watched it harden people in my family, and it is really hard to watch. It feels better to be numb. It's like, well, I'd rather just not love at all than to have love and loss again. That's not what the universe wants us to do.
That's not why we're here.
That's not why we're here. It's not. We're meant to be there for people and for our loved ones, and to show love and support, and to use our traumas as launching pads, not as barriers.
It definitely is a barrier. You don't know it until you put words behind it.
Sometimes the permission is nice. Sometimes we need to hear that permission to do that and to go that far with those emotions. And that's okay. That's why we have support.
Tell me some joyful times with your mother.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and say her name. Her name is Monica Garcia Bradley. She grew up in a life of poverty from a single parent household. My grandmother was brave enough to leave her husband who was abusing her, and that was a very taboo thing to do back in those days.
My grandmother did the exact same thing.
Really brave, really brave to do that. You were left with no resources. There wasn't child support back then. Her making the choice to leave was her making the choice to be on her own with 3 kids. They moved from Corpus Christi to Houston. They moved out to the Heights, it's a rough area. She had a rough childhood. She talked about barely any food in the fridge and racism and having to really claw her way to the top. There were over 300 people at her funeral. The church was packed. We walked in and we were not expecting. I mean, it was standing room only. There were people from all walks of life. And the majority of them were students, past and present students, who flew in to come to this funeral because she had helped them get into colleges or get jobs or get out of abusive households. I have a very distinct memory of my mother hearing about one of her students sleeping on a park bench. And she grabbed me and she got in the car. We're driving around town looking for this kid. She absolutely would not have it. We had kids knocking on our door in the middle of the night because they were running away from abusive households. Her purpose on this earth was to help the youth, and she helped the youth in so many beautiful ways. She ran a club. It was called Future Business Leaders of America. She would teach these kids like really amazing business skills. They could go into the world and like do something. And there's one girl who she helped get into MIT, this immigrant girl who she came to my mom freshman year of high school not knowing English. And this girl is like on a graduate program now. Like she already graduated from MIT. She's in like some other graduate program at Harvard. It's just crazy what she was able to see in people and see potential and help you rise to the next level. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. Nobody thought I was going to make it as an actor. Nobody thought I was ever going to make it in showbiz. Everyone told my mother and my father, you're crazy for filling her head with all these delusional thoughts that she's actually going to make it. She's not pretty enough. She's not good enough. She's too short. She doesn't get good grades. She's not smart enough. And my mother's like, wrong. You're just not seeing it. My mother filled me with endless delusion of all the things that I could accomplish in this world. I am so grateful for that because I was able to accomplish so much. I actually had a moment recently where I was sitting down meditating, doing a manifestation session, and I realized, oh my God, I have everything I've ever wanted. Now I'm on this new journey in my life of, well, now that I've gotten to this stage, like what's next? What are the new things that I want in life? And filling myself with those same delusional thoughts that she gave me to work on reaching those goals.
They're not delusional.
They're not delusional because they already happened.
Right.
It's amazing. I mean, I would not be where I am without that woman's love and support and unwithering faith in me.
What is your favorite memory with her?
I have a lot of favorite memories with my mom. She was my best friend. My mom was my best friend in the entire freaking world. Growing up doing dance classes and theater and stuff, we spent a lot of time in the car together. So we had a lot of really fun moments in the car. We laughed, we cried, we did everything in between. Those are some of my favorite memories of hers. Just going from point A to point B. I'm from Houston, so Houston driving takes a long time. So you're in the car for a while. And I love those moments. I also have a framed picture in my house. This was one of the moments I had come back from New York to Houston just to visit my family. And she sent me this text with a little sad face. And it was like, I miss you already. I love you so much. And then she sent me a smiley face picture. And she said, but I'm so proud of you. And I have that text. And I have it framed in my house. I look at it every day. And that is the epitome of my mother, is that one picture.
I've been meaning to do that with some of my mom's texts.
Do it. It's so worth it. It's easy.
Yeah.
Little snapshot, send it to CVS, and then it's just always there.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. I love it. She was also really cool. My mom was way cooler than me. She taught at the high school. All the kids wanted to hang out with her during lunch, like all the time. Kids would want to skip class to go hang out with her in her class. And there were multiple times my mom was like, raise your hand if you're not in this class. Like, if you're in here and you're not supposed to be in here. Like, she couldn't even keep track anymore. There were just constantly kids around because I just loved her spirit. Mm-hmm. If you talk to anybody about my mother, they will say how kind she was, how nice she was, how encouraging. She was there for them during a really hard time. She encouraged them to take some big leap, and it changed their lives. She had an impact on every single person that came into her life. I had ex-boyfriends that years after we weren't together were still talking to my mom. I was like, what? She was just such a guiding light for people. And then once you had her in your life, you didn't want to let go. And that was amazing. Her impact on this world. God, I don't even think this world deserves her at this point. I'm unbelievably honored to be her daughter. And I just want to keep living every day to uphold her legacy and continue to be kind and show compassion like she did and defy odds. I did talk about my coping with it was via physical activity. That was a real good way for me to deal with my trauma. I'm also a dancer, so physical activity is really healing for me. So that was a big one. I traveled a lot. She loved to travel. That was a big part of my life and healing process. Because I feel my mother around me so much, it makes it easy to talk to her and sort of do these little check-ins, which I really like. And so I will sit in a meditation session and just essentially call onto her, and we'll just kind of sit in the same energy together. That's been a really nice, beautiful thing that I do.
That's happened with me, but I haven't called on her in a meditation.
Yeah.
I just get like flooded with her. I know it's her.
Have you ever seen her yet?
She's been in my dreams.
How is she in your dreams? Like, does she know she's passed?
It's been an evolution.
Okay.
When she first died, she did not know. My first dream with her.
Did you know in the dream?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the dream, I knew. It was a pitch black room. I could see nothing except her in a hospital bed. She could not get up and she was crying, saying, what's happening? I do not think she knew. The second one was weeks after that first one. And she was acting fine. And I was annoyed with her. And I'm like, where have you been? I still knew she was dead. And I was like, where have you been? And she was like, I'm sorry, I was with Brandon, which is my dead cousin. The third dream, we were in a car and she was in the passenger seat. I still don't know who was driving. I was in the back and she was just talking. And I stopped her and I was like, Mom, do you know? And she was like, that I'm dead? Yeah.
Wow.
And she just kept talking.
Just kept going.
Like nothing was wrong. And the last one, we were sitting down, laughing, just enjoying each other, but we both knew. And I started crying in the dream. And I said, I just miss you. And she started crying and I haven't seen her since. I think she's trying to give me time. Yeah. And I only get signs from her when I'm living.
That's real.
I don't get signs from her if I'm mourning or if I'm sad or if I choose to not go to something. If I go, I'll get signs, and they're too specific to not
know it's her.
To not be her. Yeah, but she hasn't showed what I've seen her in my dreams. Piggybacking. And that last one was months ago.
Yeah, it might be some time. I saw my mom. I had the craziest dream of my mother. Maybe like a month after she had passed away. And it's funny because I had had dreams about my mother prior to this, after she had passed. But in the dreams, that's why I asked if you knew that she passed, because I was having dreams as if I didn't know she had passed.
Okay.
Like they were almost like flashback dreams, and like we were just living life. And I was like, oh my God, you're here. Like almost like her passing was the bad dream. Like I'm in the dream, and that felt to me like real life, and her passing was the bad dream. However, a month later, I had another dream where I walked into this room. She's sitting on a bed, and she's wearing this beautiful blue flowy dress. And I knew she had passed. I was very aware of it. This dream did not feel like a dream. It didn't feel fuzzy-headed like a dream usually does.
All of them have felt like I was really there.
Really there. And I was like, Mom, oh my God, you're here. I started freaking out in the dream, and I just started, my mother was very bubbly and very happy-go-lucky, but in the dream she was very at peace. I can't explain it. She was very neutral. And I was like, Mom, I love you so much. We miss you. And she just kept saying, I know. I was like, she just kept saying, I know. And then she goes, come with me. So I go with her. And we walk into this giant like warehouse room. It's just an open room with nothing in there. I go, Mom, why am I here? Why are we here? She goes, I just want to see you dance. And yeah, I just want to see you dance. So I did. So I danced for her. And I was done. She just looked at me. She goes, okay, I have to go now. She told me she loved me, and that was it. And that has stuck with me for so long, and I've never had another experience like that. That was a really like one of a kind experience. And I just took that realized like she just wants to see me dance. She wants to see me live. It's similar to like what you were saying. They want us to live. They don't want us to be sad. We have to keep living for them, for their honor. It's like the best thing that we can do.
Yeah. I think those dreams are real though.
Oh, it was so real. My mother visited me.
Yeah.
She fully came to visit me. And I think that I mean, even the way she was acting, I mean, the peace that they talk about after passing, you know, she was her soul. She wasn't even the external things that she needed to be for society. She was her soul, which was this pure blissful thing. And yeah, that was wild. Her birthday's September 15th. And my sister and I were feeling a certain way, and she called me and we were just kind of talking. I do lots of rituals. I like rituals. So I told her, I was like, well, listen, I think I'm going to do a ritual tonight for Mom. I was like, do you want to join me? She lives in Texas. And I was like, well, FaceTime, we'll do it together. She's like, I would love that. She's like, what do we do? I said, well, all you need is just grab a white candle. And I told her to do. I was like, come meet me on here at 8 p.m. We'll meet on FaceTime again. And we're going to write out all the things that we wish that we could tell her. Then we're going to burn it. And we're going to just honor her in that moment. And it was me, my sister, and my 2 nephews joined in as well. And then my brother was there. My brother was observing. He didn't participate, but he observed. He's very closed off from it still. And we did that. And actually in the letter, I said out loud for the first time, I was like, I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you passed. I never said that out loud before. My siblings were crying when I said that too, because I knew that was something I'd kind of been holding for a long time. But I think rituals are really important when it comes to doing things like that. I believe in them. I think that they connect us to our ancestors and to the higher powers that be. They're important if you think that they are going to help you. Try it.
Yeah.
You know, little things like that.
I agree. I was all about a ritual before she died. Yeah, I just don't do the rituals anymore. but I know my soul wants to. Do you celebrate her birthday?
We do. Well, I always try to just do something that day. Really funny enough, I'm always working on my birthday. I am always booked on my birthday. It is on her birthday. Also on my birthday, but it's on her birthday. It's very bizarre, and I can't help but think she does it on purpose, so that way I have something to do that day.
Yeah.
I don't have any other choice but to focus in on that thing and not just sit at home and wallow, because that would be a very easy thing to do. Whenever I do have time in that day, I will do something. I either will do something that she really liked to do, or a fun little ritual, even just say a prayer, lifting her up. I will talk about her, maybe just like have a little moment to talk about her memory or a favorite moment, or journal a little bit about her. So I do always do something on her birthday.
This is my mom's second birthday not being here. We did stuff she loved and went to that restaurant she loved. This year I'd already thought about it, that I want to write things that I wanted to say to her too this next birthday.
I think that's a good idea. I didn't realize there were so many things I wanted to say to her. And it was funny because some of them were like updates that maybe she already knows, but it was nice to just say them out loud as if I'm talking to her. It's comforting.
Yeah. But the working on her birthday, I 100% think that's from her.
It has to be.
My grandmother's name was Mary Elizabeth. My first recurring role was on Fox. My name was Mary Beth. I started on her birthday.
Oh my gosh.
It's too specific.
It's too specific to not see it. It's too specific.
The anniversary of my mom's death, my mom loved to thrift. Fucking loved it. So these bracelets, she made me one, I made her one at the same time, and they said, I love you. On the anniversary of her death, I went to estate sales. There was a bead set. The photo on the outside of the bead set was 2 bracelets that said, I love you. The bracelet in the middle was her name.
What?
Whenever I get really, really sad, I try to think about that.
Yeah.
Because that is too specific.
It's too specific. It's gnarly. It's a gnarly experience when somebody passes and they come to visit you and they're there in so many different signs.
That sign specifically is the reason I'm starting to remember who I was and the fact of the things I believe, because I was so, the universe loves me. The universe is a yes universe. Whatever I want is mine. Just live out of the heart. I believed it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped. Signs like that make me aware that it is still true.
Yeah.
Before she died, I wasn't scared of dying. I knew I would still be around. I knew I would go back to wherever we came from. And if I didn't learn my lessons, I would probably do it again. If I didn't have something to bring to help the collective.
Yeah.
Because we're just all walking each other home,
Mm-hmm.
And I believed all of that. But whenever that happens, it really makes you question
Everything.
everything.
Yeah. It's wild.
Do you do anything for the anniversary of her passing?
Same thing. I will always end up working on that day.
I love that.
It's so wild. I mean, I could be hitting a dry spell.
And you'll work.
And I'll work that day. It's happened every year.
I love that.
Every single year. I have never had a day off on her birthday or the day she passed.
How old was she when she died?
Well, that's a good question. She would always lie to me about her age. So we're going to go with 26. That's what she would always... No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
She told me she was 26 years old for the first 15 years of my
Stop.
life. She was most definitely not.
At heart, she was.
At heart, she was.
I love that. My mom died at 59. I'm 36. And I'm cool. So I got 23 years left. I find myself thinking like that. Do you think or
well,
do you ever you're okay, I'm this far away from where she was when she died?
I do, especially with, not to show my age, but I am turning 36 this year. And she was 15 when she passed. Real talk. That's not that far off. That is not far away. That is a terrifying thought. That is a little stressful. I know that the type of cancer she had is hereditary.
Is it a gene?
It's a gene. I have not been tested. A part of me does not want to be tested. I don't know if I can live with knowing I have it. Maybe later in my life I'll change my mind. But in the meantime, I pretty much just convinced myself I have it. And I have to continue to take care of my body in the ways she did not. She didn't eat healthy. She had diabetes. She ate sugar all the time.
Because we can have all the genes, but something has to activate it.
Yes. Stress is a big one. So I'm constantly trying to de-stress myself, take things more lightly. She would just bundle things up. And I can feel myself do that at times. And I know that did not serve her.
Even holding grief in, like how I am with Jax, I feel like grief does such a number on your body.
Yes. All these gray hairs. I didn't have gray hair until the year my mother passed away. The year my mother passed away, that was when all my gray hairs came in. It took me a few years to kind of chill myself out and come back to a more neutral state and not kind of live in a state of anxiety all the time. Once you experience something like that, you kind of live on edge for a while of like, oh my God, when's the next thing going to happen?
Survival mode.
A survival mode. Like there's a tiger out for me at any point.
I still have problems with this, but I'm getting way better. Scheduling. After she died, couldn't do it. Like I could not schedule things that would ruin the whole day.
Interesting. I do that too. Wait, I didn't even connect that could be a trauma response.
Yeah, like if I have something planned, I dread it all week. Or not now. I'm way better now. But when it first started, when the strike was happening, the non-union commercials would come in, I would get stressed about the deadline. I was in no shape to be smiling on camera when she first died anyway. So
nope.
I was just like, I can't do this. Please stop submitting me right now for those.
Absolutely.
But yeah, time things,
Yeah.
I wanted to sleep as late as I wanted to sleep. I didn't want to be on any routine. I have ADHD, so I don't want a routine anyway, but a routine actually helps me feel my best. I definitely think that's a trauma response.
So interesting. I think it's okay completely to be taking a break from all of this. I went to one audition after she passed and made a huge mistake. I sang When Somebody Loved Me for this audition. Huge mistake. Huge. I sobbed while singing this song in front of a room full of people. And they had the looks on their faces of like, what the F is wrong with this girl? And I just exited stage left. I was like, I have to leave. And I was like, I think I'm not ready to audition.
Yeah.
And that was my sign. I was like, not ready.
And there was a long time I wasn't ready to even go to functions. I went to a function, like to support my friend. I remember seeing someone that I just don't care for. We just don't mesh. And I feel like I went out of my way to be mean to her. And I was like, cool, that's not who I am. I'm clearly angry and not ready to be around people. If I go to a party, I'll sit outside at the bonfire. I still don't want to be around 60 people.
It's a lot of energy to take on. I think also being an artist, it's easy for us to take on energy in general, just with that factor in. So when you're harnessing and when you're healing and you're harnessing all this grief and anger and trauma and you're still processing things and you are still very much in the state of processing it, I can only imagine that would be too much.
Oh yeah. And if I get auditions that they're talking about the loss of their mother, I can't connect to it. I can't connect to it. But if I need to cry in an audition, I immediately can if it's not about the death of a mother.
Interesting.
But if it's about the death of, like, the mom had already died or is dying, my body is like, no, this is mine. This isn't healed enough for me to express it truthfully on camera.
Not yet. It will be eventually, but it's going to take a while. Might take years. That's okay.
Yeah.
Perfectly okay. Everyone experiences trauma and grief differently. And there is really no one size. No two people experience it the same. My siblings and I grew up the exact same way, had the exact same experiences as my mother, and we have all processed it differently. Grief is wild.
It is. I say that all the time.
Yeah.
It is wild.
It's a gnarly experience, and it's a lifetime experience. It's never something that goes away. It's just something that again, it's the missing limb. You just learn to go through life without that limb. You start going through life differently. You might react to things differently, and that's okay. That you're not broken, you're just changed. I don't want anybody to ever feel ashamed for maybe the way they're processing grief.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes people worry if there's a stigma attached to it. Like maybe you should be over this by now. I will grieve my mother for the rest of my life, and every single time I have another event happen in my life, I will think of her. I will say, when you start going through your life and the events that you thought that person would be there for is not, that's a weird experience. Like my mother not being there when I moved to Atlanta, my mother not being present for my wedding, my mother never meeting my husband. That's a gnarly one. I never can get over that one. That I am married to somebody that my mother has never actually met. I know she's here and she sees him, and I think she chose him for me, fully honestly. It's crazy to know that I will have children and they will never know her. That's always kind of a shock value for me still.
At my friend's wedding the other day, she danced with her mom. I fucking lost it.
Oh.
And I was so jealous. And I was like, I don't want to be jealous of my friends and their love.
It's really hard to see people, like anytime I see a mother and a daughter duo laughing and having fun, it's tough to watch. But what was another part of my grieving process to get through that? Watching Gilmore Girls.
Really? I've never watched Gilmore Girls.
I am obsessed with Gilmore Girls. I've watched it like 6 times through.
Really?
It's so stupid.
Have you watched Supernatural?
I love Supernatural.
That's what I watched when my mom died.
That's a great
I knew
one.
Everything that was going to happen.
Yeah. You know what? And I recently found out that is a trauma response, is wanting to rewatch shows because you already know what's going to happen. You can't handle the surprise.
Yes.
Which totally makes sense.
So we watched all 20, however many seasons there are. And I was fine doing it.
I found that throwing myself into watching a mother-daughter relationship was healing for me.
And that's Gilmore Girls?
Gilmore Girls.
Okay.
It's just literally about a mother and a daughter in a small town. And it's super simple. Fall is a great time to watch it. 'Tis the season. It's Gilmore Girls season. Nothing major ever happens on the show. It's very simple. So I find it a good one when you can't handle a lot. Like sometimes I can't handle the high drama. It's just a nice comfort watch. And it helps me kind of get over the jealousy of seeing a mother-daughter duo hanging out and having fun and feeling like what you're talking about, and just feeling like I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
But I wish it was me, Listen to your soul and what you're able to accomplish that day, what you can handle, and take it day by day. 1% is my thing. If I can just do that 1%, it helps me get through.
Do you still have days like that?
They will still sneak up on me, and they will happen very randomly. Like now, I would say it maybe happens once every few months. I just have a real down day where I'm thinking about her really hard. She's really heavy on my mind. Usually it's a buildup. She's sort of heavy on my mind for a while, and I just kind of can't hold. And I'm going about my day as if everything's normal and everything's fine. Nobody knows that I'm thinking about these things in my head until I just kind of have a breaking point, and I just need to go cry in a corner and feel it out, essentially. But usually they pass easier now. So I can cry it out and I can be on the other side of it better.
Well, there is hope.
There is hope. I mean, there is so much hope and light at the end of grief. There is so much life to live. I think if there's anything that you could take away from today, live that life that person that loved you wanted you to live, or live the life that makes you happy because they just want to see you happy. Once somebody passes, a lot of any anger or judgment that person may have had, all those things are released once you're gone. And it's just their soul, and all they want is for you to just be happy. So do that. Celebrate them by celebrating joy.
I love that. We're going to end it on that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so grateful for you being here and sharing your experience. Your experience and where you are now is really motivating for myself, and I feel like anyone early in grief that doesn't think there's another side to it.
Yeah. And I know it feels that way. And I'm glad that I can give some comfort to that. And there's no rush. There's no rush to getting to that.
I agree. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for watching Lost and Found. I really hope that this episode resonated with you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe below. There will be new episodes every Friday, and grief is fucking hard, and you don't have to do it alone. And I love you, and I hope I see you next time.